KSU Gold. This show is being brought to you by Kentucky State University's College of Agriculture, Food Science, and Sustainable Systems in partnership with the Frankfurt Kiwanis Club. My name is Lindsay McGaha. I'm a media manager here at Kentucky State University, and I'm your host. And on this show, we give our viewers a peek of our faculty, our staff, and our students and their efforts to continue our golden legacy of achievement here at Kentucky State University. On today's show, we will speak with Jennifer Hubbard Sanchez, a state specialist, and Dr. Lee Whittinghill, who will discuss urban agriculture and tips on how to garden in your very own backyard. But first, we'll turn our attention to Mrs. Sanchez.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I mentioned earlier that you were a state specialist. What is a state specialist, and what do you do here at Kentucky State University?
So within the land grant program, there is a designation of state specialist, and those are content experts in different areas. We have state specialists for family and consumer science, specialists in agriculture, and in my case, I serve as a state specialist for sustainable systems. What that means really is somebody that looks at sustainability in all of its different elements. My main focus, of course, is environmental sustainability and sort of human dependence and impacts on the physical environment.
Who do you typically work with? Is it high school students, college students, youth, or the general public?
So I'm really lucky. I feel very fortunate in my job because no day is like the day before. I work with lots of different people. So in the traditional specialist role, one would work with a lot of county agents and train those county agents in a specific content area and be able to work with them to get the information out into the communities. I do some of that. I do work with our agents and with agents from the University of Kentucky as well, and train them on different environmental education curricula, ways to teach other people about the environment. But beyond that, I work a lot sort of at three different levels. Level one, I would say, is kind of directly with youth and adults in many cases, teaching them about the environment. And that's maybe my favorite part, although sometimes it gets a little hectic when you have 50 or 100 kids. One day we had 75 kids out at our environmental ed center, and that maybe was a little bit much for one day, but that direct work with youth, teaching them, doing different activities and lessons on environmental education in a direct manner. The next level, I would say, is working with school teachers, other natural resource professionals, and training them in order to give them the tools to better teach about the environment. So people that work with kids, people that work with others and train others, in my state specialist role, I'm able to train those folks. And then at a third level, I also work with other leaders in the environmental education field in the state of Kentucky. So I currently serve as the chair of the Kentucky Association for Environmental Education. I'm on the Kentucky University Partnership for Environmental Education board. And so I get to work with other leaders in the field to kind of, I don't want to say oversee, but really guide and shape the direction of our field in the state of Kentucky. So it's really neat. It's kind of a multi-level project.
Wow. Well, what are some of the environmental challenges that we face here in Kentucky?
Environmental challenges in Kentucky. They're like anywhere. There are several. I would say, a lot of kind of the main ones would be air quality issues, air pollution, especially in our cities. And then water issues. Kentucky does have a lot of water issues. We have a lot of problems with contaminated waterways. We have a lot of beautiful rivers and lakes and streams, and unfortunately a lot of those are assessed as impaired waterways for many different reasons, as well as flooding issues. I think there's not one Kentuckian that would say we don't have a problem with flooding. That really is a big environmental issue in our state. So I would say air and water are some of our biggest problems.
Well, you mentioned water, and one of the big fads that's out is drinking water from a bottle. There are so many different types of bottled water, whether it's purified water or mineral water or even spring water. Mm-hmm. Do you recommend drinking water from a bottle or bottled water, or is it safe to drink unfiltered tap water?
Sure. So part of what I do, I'm going to be very honest, is, environmental education is not advocacy. So I will never tell somebody this is what you should or should not do. My job is to educate people on the science behind things and on the facts and not opinions. But if you want my opinion, and if somebody were to ask for my opinion, I drink water from the tap all the time. A lot of people don't know, but bottled water that, you buy at the grocery store, that is not really assessed as often. Our municipal water sources, they've got to be tested on a regular basis, whereas the water that you buy in a bottle comes from a factory that's not tested on a weekly basis, for example, by the FDA. So when people ask me that question, I say, if you think bottled water is better for you, you're probably scientifically not correct, number one. But number two, the energy and the resources that go into the plastic of that water bottle, as well as the transport of it, also have further environmental impacts. So I would always say stick with tap water, but that's kind of a hard sell for a lot of people.
Well, when you think environment, sometimes you think energy.
Of course.
I think they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
And I know you work with a lot of people in the community to talk a lot about ways that they can save energy in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to homeowners or renters on ways that they could lessen the amount of energy that they use with their home appliances?
Yeah, so, the first thing is really simple, just turn it off. I think, and I include myself in this, a lot of times we're really lazy. People have hard lives, we're busy, we're exhausted. Who wants to have to walk all over the house and turn the lights off? But, again, it's not an advocacy thing, but an education thing. Everybody's trying to save money, and why would you leave your lights on? You're the one that's paying those bills. So anything that you're not using, turn it off. I know I drive my family crazy. I'm the one that always unplugs the microwave because even though you're not using it, the light that's still on there, you're paying for that.
I never thought to do that.
When you're gone all
Wow,
day for 12
okay.
hours a day, you are using energy simply to have a light on your microwave. So turning things off that you're not using, unplugging your cell phone charger, that it's called vampire energy, and that's, even though your phone's not plugged into it, your charger is still pulling energy. So turning things off, number one. Number two, kind of looking around your house at efficiency. There are groups that will come in, and we've actually partnered with some of them to do trainings for homeowners on how to make your home the most efficient. So winterizing your home in the summertime, air conditioning. Your house does not need to be 70 degrees right now while you're here at work. So when you leave for the day, turn it up to 78, and then when you walk in the door, turn it back down to a temperature that's more comfortable for you, and vice versa. In winter months, if it's really cold outside and you want the heat up, well, you don't need your house to be 78 degrees in the winter if you're here at work. So turn it down before you leave and then turn it back up. Things like that, we really have worked a lot with different organizations to kind of train people on. Number one, it's really good for your wallet. Like, that's the main message, is you're going to save money, and then kind of the byproduct is it's also going to have a really good impact on the environment.
I like it. You mentioned earlier the Environmental Education Research Center. Mm-hmm. And what is that? Many people don't know that Kentucky State has it. So what is it, and when did we get access to it?
So KSU owns a 307-acre property out in Henry County, Kentucky. It's probably about 30 minutes from here, from close to downtown Frankfort. And it is a 307-acre forest that it is an environmental education and research center. KSU has had that since 2005. I now, as part of my job here at KSU, manage that center in partnership with Mr. William Baker, who is located out there all day, every day. And what we do there, we've got a fishing pond, we've got a beautiful creek, we've got hiking trails, you name it. It's just sort of kind of a hidden, just a very hidden, precious place. But we are working really hard to bring community groups and school groups. This year we've had over 500 kids, adults, you name it, that have come out there for educational opportunities at the center.
Now, for short, I call it the EERC.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to refer to it
and
that
that
way.
is fine.
But what types of groups would you say would be interested in visiting the EERC?
So during the school year, we do work a lot with formal classroom teachers. So teachers will call me and ask me, I'm teaching a biology class, and these are the educational standards that I'm working on. Can you all tailor activities to help me meet those standards? And so during the school year, we work a lot with formal classroom teachers. In the summertime, we work a lot with, we've worked with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We've worked with a lot of different summer camps. So either those that are through the local school system or ones that are just kind of more informal. We've worked with the homeschool group. Any groups, church groups. We have a lot of groups from KSU that have gone out there for different purposes. So it really is a place for everybody, and it's a place that hopefully more people will know about and will be interested in coming out to.
Well, I think the biggest question is it free?
Yes, it is free. Everything that we do out there is free.
All right, well, sounds good. Listen, you all stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to hear how Kentucky State University's Small Farm Grant is helping the Russellville Urban Garden Project. And we'll also take a trip to Wilson's Nursery, where we'll learn a few tips on home gardening.
I chose to attend Kentucky State University because I could begin studying with them while I was still working after college. Working at the aquaculture lab at Kentucky State University is a lot like the environment that you're going to encounter in an aquaculture research lab. This is a place where you come to become a scientist, to get the training, to meet the peers who are going to be your contemporaries throughout your career, and to really learn to take joy in your work as well as pride. And I'm grateful to have been a part of that here at Kentucky State University.
Kentucky State University is among the top universities in the South, according to recently released 2017 U.S. News and World Report College Rankings.
Hello, my name is Austin Wright. I'm Small Farms Agent for Christian County, Logan County, Todd County, and Hopkins County. Today, I'm working with Russellville Urban Gardening Project along with Dr. Dawson. And really, the Small Farms program really helps better children to understand, young adults also as well, learn more about the gardening aspect of developing urban farms in our communities. How do we feed them? How do we practice better eating habits, and most importantly, how to better a way of life for our community. We also have a lot of children that have shown their interest in becoming part of Kentucky State also as well, as far as their educational aspirations, so we're targeting that. The Urban Garden Project will continue to grow stronger, and it will continue to become a thriving part of our community.
I'm Nancy Dawson, and I'm a volunteer. I direct the Russellville Urban Gardening Project. This is a program that started in my backyard. Yep, the backyard. Why? Because I realized that the kids in the neighborhood didn't know anything about farming, anything about gardening, how a tomato grows, how a pepper grows. We started about 5 years ago. We received a small farm grant for Kentucky State University, and the people at KSU have been here the whole time. And that's what KSU is really good at, is working and holding the hand of the small farmer and making sure that people stay connected to the earth. And so today we're here, and we've been here now, this is going on our 3rd year, and we bring hundreds of children here. So children will learn to value earth. So I'm just glad to be here today. And I'm glad to see all these kids. And I want to come back 20 years from now and see this 20, 30 times the amount. No matter what they do, whether they go into agriculture, farming, whatever, they'll be connected to the earth.
Kentucky State is a great school to attend, especially because of the small class sizes. You get that one-on-one experience with your teachers. They're really caring and understanding and want to see you succeed. You also get in the field earlier. As a freshman, you're able to go out to the farms, you're able to do research projects. Kentucky State prepares you for a field in agriculture by the multiple resources that are available to you, the people that you get to meet, and all the cool things you get to do.
And we're back with Dr. Lee Whittinghill, who is an assistant professor in urban agriculture. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And I guess I should say welcome to Kentucky State University too, because you're a fairly new employee.
I am. I started in March.
All right, well, congratulations. We are very happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
So we talked a little bit about urban agriculture, mainly because it's in your title. Tell us what urban agriculture is and why it's so important.
Urban agriculture is a lot of things, and I've read a lot of different definitions, but basically what it is growing or producing food in and around an urban area, and that could be a town or a really big city like New York or Tokyo.
Okay. Well, okay.
One of the reasons it's important is that we have a growing world population, and that population is becoming increasingly urban. So we can either try and increase food production in rural areas, which is also important, but some of the people living in urban areas don't have access to fresh food like fruits and vegetables, and urban agriculture is one way to improve that. It's also been relatively important historically, and it's estimated that 15 to 20% of world food is produced in urban areas.
Now, typically, when you hear urban agriculture, you also hear terms like food desert or food security. What are those two terms, and what do they mean inside of urban agriculture?
So food security is the ability to access fresh, healthy fruits and vegetables. And a food desert is a place where people don't have access. So it might be that there isn't a grocery store that's close enough for people to get to. It might also be an area where they don't have the transportational means to get to a grocery store.
What are some common problems that you see in areas that have food deserts?
Areas that have food deserts tend to also be areas with high rates of poverty. They also tend to be areas with larger proportion of minority individuals, and can have some other issues as well, like less green space and maybe more susceptible to issues like heat waves and not being able to handle that in the summertime.
Well, gardening's gotten very creative. I know there are so many different types of gardens that I've heard of myself, whether it's a vertical garden or a victory garden or a rooftop garden, even salsa gardens. So tell us a little bit about the history of some of these gardens and why this creative type of move is kind of encouraged.
Well, urban agriculture goes really far back, and there are some people looking at historical records that think, in the Byzantine Empire and the Mayan civilization used urban agriculture to help make sure that their food system was strong enough, and in case something disrupted getting food from the rural areas to the city, they'd still have something to eat. It can also be something like a kitchen garden. A lot of homes historically would have a small patch of vegetables or herbs that they would pick and use right in their home. And that's kind of the idea that led into victory gardens. In World War I and II, victory gardens were a way to help promote patriotism in the war effort, but it also led to the production of there were about 5.5 million gardeners that produced around 10 million pounds of food right in their homes.
There are a number of people that may find going to the grocery store to be a little bit more convenient. So what are the benefits of growing food in your own garden, and that would, I guess, encourage people to maybe try out their green thumb?
Well, aside from the benefits of gardening, which I find it to be very therapeutic, and there are ways that gardening has been incorporated into mental health programs, garden therapy, and spaces like hospital settings for recuperation. In some cases, it can be cheaper to grow your own food than to buy it at a grocery store. In some cases, you might also not be able to get those foods in the grocery store, especially if they're culturally important and not from the United States. They can be hard to find. Other benefits are that you're growing that food at home, you're enjoying it, it's really fresh, you have control over how it's produced, and you might be able to save a little money and use that for other expenditures in your house.
What are some of the benefits of using or doing container gardening as opposed to maybe doing gardening in your own backyard?
So one of the biggest benefits of container gardening is that you can do it almost anywhere. You can do it on your fire escape, on your balcony or your porch. You can bring it inside in the wintertime and keep those herbs going in your kitchen. You could also take it up to the roof. It's also a way of separating what you're growing from the soil around where you live. In many cases, soils in urban areas are contaminated with lots of things like lead that got there through lead as an additive in gasoline, other things like lead from paint. There are other heavy metals also from wear and tear on car and other moving parts. Things like solvents in gasoline that might have been spilled at a gas station or at a laundromat. And none of those things are what you want in your food.
What are some creative containers that you've seen people use when they garden?
I think one of my favorite that I've seen was the kiddie pool garden container. So you go to a hardware store or a Target or almost anything, you can get a little wading pool for kids, fill it with dirt, and just grow your vegetables right in there.
Oh, wow, that sounds cool. Hey, I guess anything goes. So one of the things that I know most people, I guess, deal with when it comes to gardening is pests, whether it's an insect or something that's furry, like I was going to say a bear, but I guess a squirrel or a deer or even, I guess, a rabbit. What are ways that people that garden or gardeners what can they do to prevent pests from taking over their garden or to deter pests from taking over?
So deer and rabbits and squirrels are a little bit trickier than insects. But there are some foods that they don't like. Deer, for example, don't like leafy things that are a little bit fuzzy or hairy. So things like yarrow and lamb's ear. They might not be inclined to eat them if there are other things around. There are also some things that are very pungent and flavorful, like some herbs, thyme, basil, even mint. Deer and rabbits might avoid them a little bit. There are some things that you can plant that will attract predators to the insect pests. So yarrow, again, is a nice one because it attracts parasitic wasps that prey on caterpillars that might eat your lettuce or your tomatoes.
What are some types of plants that are edible, and what are some types of plants that are not edible that you would recommend or maybe stay away from planting in your garden?
So there are a few edible plants that have parts that aren't edible that people should be aware of, especially if you have kids around that are going to be in the garden with you and maybe sampling from your garden. So asparagus is one. A lot of people love asparagus, but the berries that it grows later in the season can be toxic. So you want to make sure your kids avoid them. There are a lot of other plants that are great to grow for birds that have toxic berries. I don't want to discourage people from planting them. Just be aware and make sure that your kids or other people using the garden know not to eat them. There are also a couple things that have leaves that are toxic, and tomatoes and potatoes in a big enough quantity would be harmful, but we don't usually eat that part of the plant. Another plant, rhubarb, also has toxic leaves. So you have to be careful if you're going to grow rhubarb, make sure you cut the leaves off and use only the stems.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Listen, we're going to head to Wilson's Nursery where we'll discuss tips on home gardening. Y'all stay tuned.
Kentucky State is a great school to attend, especially because of the small class sizes. You get that one-on-one experience with your teachers, your mentors. I've really enjoyed being here at Kentucky State University, working and studying with the professors and students here who are very knowledgeable, very engaging, and very helpful. You're able to actually talk to the professors. They're really caring and understanding and want to see you succeed. You also get in the field earlier. As a freshman, you're able to go out to the farms. You're able to do research projects.
After my undergrad degree in agriculture, I was looking forward to continue my studies. I was really interested in Kentucky State University and I love the research programs here.
Kentucky State has prepared me for a career in agriculture because you get the experience of being able to do different research projects. You get to actually collect and analyze your data. So it was a perfect fit and really, really excited to be working in this field.
Kentucky State University has had 5 name changes. In 1886, it was known as the State Normal School for Colored Persons. In 1902, it was changed to Kentucky Normal Industrial Institute. The name changed in 1926 to Kentucky State Industrial College for Colored Persons. In 1952, it was later changed to Kentucky State College. The school became known as Kentucky State University in 1972.
We're here at Wilson's Nursery with Dr. Lee Whittinghill, and today we're talking a little bit about gardening. Tell us what we have here.
We have a couple of things here that people are often have questions about when they start gardening. We have some potting mix, which sort of speaks to what do I plant my new plants in. We also have some fertilizers that we're going to talk about to demystify how you pick a fertilizer and what to look for. On the end of the table here, we have some plants that some of which are edible, some of which have other beneficial properties, but are relatively easy to grow.
Now, is there a big difference between potting mix and topsoil?
There is a difference, quite a big difference. We have here a pot that has some topsoil in it, and this is a house plant that's in potting mix. You can see that the color of the potting mix is much darker than the topsoil. The potting mix is made of sphagnum peat moss and a lot of compost. This gives it a lot of nutrients and organic matter that help the plants grow. Potting mix also has perlite in it quite frequently, and that's these little white balls that you see here. Perlite holds a lot of water, so when you water your plant, it absorbs it, and so this pot can hold a lot more water than you might think, and you can stretch between waterings a little bit longer than you would if you were in topsoil.
Tell us about fertilizer. One, I know that there are many different types here. As I walked in, I was a little confused about which type of fertilizer I would need if I was actually planting something.
All fertilizers are made up of 3 nutrients. So here we have 3 little numbers on the side. This one says 3, 4, 4. The first number is the nitrogen, the second number is the phosphate, and the third number is the potassium. So different plants need different amounts of those 3 nutrients, and typically you can find that information out either by asking your extension agent or talking to somebody at a nursery if you're really concerned to make sure that you get the right amount.
Tell us about these plants that we have here. They're very pretty, but they do something very special.
They do. This is echinacea. It's purple coneflower, and echinacea is a name some people might recognize. It's something that people take to sort of ward off a cold. It's also a really great plant in the garden because it's native, so it doesn't require a lot of extra care, but the bees and other beneficial insects really love it. So they will come to the echinacea plant, and if you have your vegetables nearby, they're going to see the vegetable flowers as well. They will. They'll pollinate it.
Well, thank you so much. We've learned so much here today. We hope that you all come out and that you're able to, one, get your garden started, or that you're able to get your herb garden started. Thank you all once again for tuning into KSU Gold. Please remember to check out the show every Monday at 8 o'clock p.m. Until next time.